Welcome back to The World Today. The DW TV's correspondent in Nice, Ben Rigot, is still standing by to tell us more about the situation in France. Ben, France has been on heightened terror alert for several months now. So how did this fatal security breach occur?
Well, the people in France, of course, are shocked by this new attack, and they were shocked in November when the terrorists struck in Paris. But here in Nice, hundreds of people are gathering at makeshift memorials, and they tell me we are still strong. We want to overcome this terrorism, and we won't give in into these threats. And France is still a strong and proud nation, especially because this happened on the National Day of France. The 14th of July is the day that is remembering the French Revolution, the struggle for freedom. And so many French people feel this was an attack not only on these people here in Nice, but also on the Republic of France, on the freedom itself. And therefore they say we have to cope with that, we have to overcome that. But as I said before, it is not still clear what the motives of this terrorists were.
Now, this is the third major attack France has suffered in less than 2 years. What impact are these attacks having on the economy and on the tourism sector?
Of course, the terrorism has had an impact on the minds of the French people. They feel more insecure, and the French government reacted with tougher laws and more police and more soldiers on the streets to try to establish more security. And that was the case until yesterday, because we had the Euro soccer championship in France, which went very smoothly if you see it from a security standpoint. There were no attacks on this. Many had feared that Islamic terrorists would strike there, but that didn't happen. And yesterday, this whole new feeling of security fell down, and the French President Hollande visited Nice today. He tried to say that France will be strong, but people in the streets, they booed when Hollande's cars rushed through the city, and they threw even paper bags and water balls at him. So he's not very liked, especially here in the south. And for him, this new attack can have a very, very deep impact.
Well, Ben Rigot, thank you so much for joining us on The World Today. Since the beginning of last year, terrorists have targeted France in a series of shootings and bombings, mostly aimed at social scenes. The Nice attack, which claimed the lives of at least 84 people, is the third mass killing in France since January 2015. Now, on January the 7th, 2015, Islamists targeted a kosher supermarket and the offices of the satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo. At least 17 people died in those attacks. Then, in November 2015, 9 militants killed a further 130 people and wounded hundreds more in a number of attacks across Paris. French officials said the ringleader was a Belgian of Moroccan descent who lived in Brussels. He was killed in a police raid in a Paris suburb 3 days after the attacks, which was claimed by the Islamic State militant group. Now, joining us on the program to further discuss this is a security expert, Dr. Ona Ekomu. You're welcome to the program, Dr. Ekomu.
Thank you very much, Dr.
Now, it does seem like terrorists have set their sights on France for repeated attacks. Why this focus on France?
Well, I think France has a peculiar problem. France is fighting ISIS, and ISIS has declared war on France. And unfortunately for France, it has a lot of locally radicalized citizens who are right there. So what that means is that in situ, you have terrorist elements already on ground, and they're ready to move and capitalize and strike at any soft target. Now, this most recent attack we saw, this is a classic active shooter scenario. You use the bus, you plow into a population, kill as many people as you can, and then you come out with firearms and start shooting. And we've seen that happen in Israel several times in the past, but now here it is happening in France. So they've just borrowed another page from the playbook of the terrorists.
Now, Dr. Ona, Dr. Ona,
Yes,
France has been
Yes,
on
ma'am.
heightened security alert for a while. It's been in a state of emergency for several months, yet they've suffered another deadly terror attack. What are they doing wrong? How can they stop these attacks from recurring?
Of terrorist attacks, unfortunately, because they are asymmetrical in nature. There is no defined front line. Everywhere is a front line for the terrorists, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's an airport, whether it's a stadium, whether it's a football game. In this case, it was just an occasion going on in the streets. And, anywhere is an opportunity for strike for terrorists because they don't have front lines. They don't wait for an army to be arrayed. In fact, they are at war against the entire citizenry of any country. And that is why France is having it, getting it up, despite the fact that they have the state of emergency in place and they are running raids, constantly arresting radicalized elements. They are, of course, killing as many terrorists as they can, those people who are resisting arrest or posing a threat to law enforcement or to the citizenry. So I think what is happening here is that it's not a fight that's going to be won just by declaring state of emergency. What that does is it empowers the police to make unwarranted arrests. And then it also gives more power to the authorities to suspend civil liberties. But what they need to do now is to focus more on the intelligence element, because you must disrupt terrorists before they strike, and that is where the battle is.
Now, Dr. Ona, finally, before I let you go, what lessons can Nigeria learn from what's happening in France as we're also battling Boko Haram terrorists here?
Yes, and unfortunately, aside from the Boko Haram threats that we have here in Nigeria, we also have some other threats that are coming up. You have the militancy threat that is spreading slowly into the southwest. And you have the ISIS threat, which has been expressed against Nigeria, and I take every threat seriously until proven otherwise. You have the Al-Qaeda threat that is coming from North Africa into Mali, into Ivory Coast, and now, it's probably moving in this direction. So I'm worried about all of these threats. So what do we need to learn from the French experience? The French experience shows that, these terrorists can strike anywhere. In fact, they're almost ubiquitous. They can strike anywhere and they can cause mayhem. So we need to be prepared on every level. What does that mean? You must get the citizenry involved or enrolled in the fight against terror. The citizens must be part of the war against terror. They must be on the vanguard and they must identify threats to them. Because the killer in Nice killed a lot of people before he was taken down. Well, if, I'm sorry to say, we can sit here and do Monday morning quarterback, second guess everybody. But I believe that if there had been a little more alertness on the part of the citizenry, perhaps the casualty level might have been lower. So I think that's a lesson for us here in Nigeria. We must understand that citizens must be invited in the fight against terror, and they must.
Dr. Ona Ekomu, thank you so much for joining us on The World today. We do appreciate your perspective on the issue. In other news, U.S. President Barack Obama has urged police and black communities to come together, saying it should not be us versus them. At a town hall meeting on race and policing organized by ABC News, Mr. Obama says dialogue between both sides will go a long way to help resolve the issues. This comes after a gunman killed five Dallas police officers at a Black Lives Matter protest last week. Mike Xavier Johnson told police he was angry after a recent shooting of black men at the hands of officers. Alton Sterling was killed by police in Baton Rouge, Louisiana on July the 5th, and a day later, Philando Castile was shot and killed during a traffic stop outside Minneapolis, Minnesota.
I have been unequivocal in condemning any rhetoric directed at police officers. So I think, Lieutenant Governor, you'd have to find any message that did not include a very strong support for law enforcement in all my utterances dating back to Ferguson, because I relied on law enforcement to protect me and my family. U.S.
President Barack Obama. Coming up in a moment, South Korean soldiers trade their boots for ballet slippers. Please stay with us for details.